Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, on this week's riff, what are we going to be talking about?
It's a subject close to your heart, Mike.
It is. I'm quite excited about this.
Yes. Well,
I've been harping on about it for a long time, haven't I?
Small things, please, small minds.
And this is really small.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's Diddy.
It's
Go
fantastic.
on.
It's
spill
the
beans.
Naim NAIT 50.
At last, we've got our hands on a Naim NAIT 50. And can I just say, just before we go any further, one of our lovely Hi-Fi Riff viewers actually offered us their Naim 50.
Yes.
Which I thought was such a lovely thing to say and
Yes.
offer. And look, we're still up for a beer and having a chat, but look, we've got one. We've got one
Yes.
here. And what a special device it is as well. So.
Yeah.
And in fact, I unboxed it earlier, and it was a real thrill because it's compared to the original NAIT, it's in a tactile way almost exactly the same. It has that sort of if you tap the case, it sounds exactly like it. The volume control, if you sort of turn that, it feels exactly the same as the original NAIT. I'm glad to see you're showing off the sockets. You're making a point that it's got DIN inputs.
Well, I wasn't going to mention the sockets. I just casually showed them to
quite.
Yeah.
DIN inputs. We had to get a special Naim supplied us with a special lead.
Yeah.
Because you don't see DINs all that often.
Especially it's called the DIN lead.
It certainly is. Yes. Yeah.
So do you know what DIN stands for?
Is the input?
No.
Okay.
So, but I can't remember either. So the first bit
went really well.
The first bit is Deutsche, which is I think it's German. It's a German standard, obviously, that came out early in the 70s, 60s, late 60s, something like that.
Right.
So we'll have a gazillion comments.
We will.
Telling me exactly what's what there. But
yes.
So it was. I remember getting an old Philips cassette deck in the 70s that had DIN plugs.
Yes. Sure.
It was a Bang & Olufsen stuff. I think had DIN plugs. And the Japanese 70s stuff had DINs and phonos. Often, like cassette decks, you'd have a choice.
Yes.
So
Naim have been faithful here to the original.
Yeah.
In fact, they've been very faithful. There's very little that's changed aesthetically.
Yes.
Instead of on the front, instead of this strange, weird balance control, we've got a phono for your headphones.
Yep.
Socket, which is really great. And in fact, it's got a stream button.
Yes.
Instead of, I can't remember what was on the original, tuner or something like that. So
yes.
In fact, I've got the original here.
Well, then have a look at it, Mike. Then you'll know.
We all know. Here we go. Look at this. They're little twin brothers, aren't they? So here's one I made 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So, so phono tuner tape.
There you go.
There you go. And mains with the off. And of course, the main difference is the light colour here.
Yes.
As much as the original red light NAIT, which I'm very proud of.
You've never told anyone that before.
Never mentioned that before.
So that's we can exclusively reveal here today. You have an original red light NAIT. Can you just show the rear sockets? Because that is, for once, it's actually worth talking about sockets on the back.
There we are.
So
look
there
at
you
that.
go.
Okay.
So
DINs on mine.
Absolutely. DINs on everything. So he's kept, Naim have kept basically two RCA phonos for the turntable input and two aux DINs, haven't they?
That's it. That's all you get.
And
yes.
It's, but the rear looks almost more like the original than the original does. If that makes any sense.
It does, yes. Yeah.
It's a lovely kind of iconic Naim industrial styling, and even for once I get slightly excited about the rear panel of an amplifier. So either that or it's a virus and I've caught it from you, Mike.
Well, it's quite possible, I suppose. It is quite possible. But it's a really lovely thing to have and behold. And of course, the reason why we have it is because it's the 50th anniversary of Naim this year.
Yes.
This is their little sort of nod to their heritage, and of course one of their most iconic products. So what do? First thing we do obviously is plug it in and see what it sounds like. And we were both really quite nicely impressed, weren't we?
So I was going to say it's a load of rubbish, but it's different to your NAIT though, Mike.
It is, yes.
So
It's got some more power than mine.
It's not a load of rubbish.
Well, mine is, I think, allegedly about 7 watts per channel, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact figure, but
No.
so
But
we
this has
are
got a few more RMS.
yes. So we are. We hope to have Naim's technical director Steve Sells coming on to the Wiltshire Hi-Fi Riff couch,
Which would be brilliant.
in a month or so. So maybe he can, tell us from the horse's mouth exactly how many watts your headphone amp over there has. So,
The headphone amp without a headphone socket.
yes. Well, you can wire a little get a socket from Maplin, can't you?
Thank you. Yes, Maplin, who are no more.
Yes.
Showing your age.
Okay. All right.
So
yeah.
with this, we listened to some interesting tracks, and we sort of listened to some retro songs, didn't we? So we listened to some Kraftwerk. In fact, we've got some CDs here. It was the Kraftwerk Man Machine album, and we listened to Space Lab.
Yes.
From this.
Yeah.
Sounded great.
Yeah. 1979, I think that
1979,
is.
yeah.
78, 79.
Yes, yeah. All analog recording.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
You didn't put the CD back.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
No,
Put the
beg your
CD
pardon.
back, please.
Beg your pardon. Sorry.
Thank you.
There we are. We also listened to rather unusual choice for you, Asia.
Yeah.
And their sort of first album, 1982.
Yeah.
I think
that's
something
right.
like that.
Yeah.
The track we listened to this was
Soul Survivor.
Soul Survivor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
One I wasn't familiar with,
Yeah.
but again,
Yeah.
sounded pretty good.
Yeah. Do you
Sounded
know
pretty
do you know the Buggles connection?
cool. Is it a Trevor Horn connection?
Nope. It's the other one.
All right.
Jeff
okay.
Downs, Trevor Horn, Buggles, Trevor Horn, Jeff Downs, Asia, Jeff Downs in Asia. So there you
Right.
go.
Okay.
So he's like half of the Buggles in Asia.
Okay. Okay.
And can you put the CD
Oh
back,
yes,
please?
I'll
Mike?
put the CD back. Sure.
Thank you.
I'm being stitched up here. So the interesting album which we listened to
Yes.
was one we know very well,
Yeah.
New Gold Dream
Yeah.
by Simple Minds. Okay, so now this can be a bit of a car crash
Yes.
of an album, can't it?
Yeah.
And
Not musically, I hasten to
no,
add.
not musically.
It's brilliant
musically,
musically.
but in terms of its production and being
Yeah.
reproduced in a high fidelity audio way. So tell me what you thought of the NAIT playing New Gold Dream.
Yes. It's a mixed story, a mixed picture, I'd say.
Are you going to talk about your cat?
Yeah, all right. So yeah, because when we were sort of discussing the NAIT sounds, actually let's talk about how it sounded on the first two tracks that
Okay.
we did. So basically we did the speakers we're using are Cambridge Audio Aero 6, and we'll put a picture up for you to see. But they weren't on sale very often. But the reason I'm telling you about them is that they are, to me, a great speaker. They're very smooth, very revealing, almost have a kind of electrostatic sound, but with extra bass. So, anything with electrostatic, you need extra bass, don't you? But sorry, Mike.
That's okay. I'm over it now.
How are your quads?
I'm over it now. I'm over it
How
now.
are your quads?
Brilliant.
So,
Thank you.
okay, all right.
Still in my system.
Yeah, so it must have been a shock to hear bass again. on those.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Anyway, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted
By yourself.
by myself, we're using Cambridge Audio Aero 6 speakers, BMR drive unit, balanced mode radiator drive unit, doing treble and mid-range, really smooth, all the way down, same drive unit down to 200 hertz, and then two big sort of 6.5-inch bass units to do the bass. And the speakers are excellent. They do have very good bass, certainly for the price. And the name NAIT 50. Really enjoyed them. It drove them extremely well. They're easy to drive speakers, about 91 dB. And on the Asia track, it drove them really well. On the Kraftwerk track, it drove them really well. We put New Girl Dream on, literally the title track, from this brilliant Simple Minds album. Again, it's about 82, wasn't it? I think
Must be around then. Yeah.
And it kind of fell over, basically.
It did a bit.
So
it did.
there's too much bass for it. It's got a really, really strong bass output on this album, and it was having a go, but it wasn't quite
No.
succeeding.
No.
So
And which is when you came up with your
Yes.
quite brilliant analogy,
Yeah.
actually. So,
well, I used to have a very sadly my pet cat Mimi died a while back, and he is a he, but he has a girl's name, so that's another story. He used to look at trees. He used to love climbing trees, and he used to walk around the garden and sit at the bottom of the tree and kind of look up and kind of wag his tail and think, I'm going to climb that tree. And then he'd walk back, take a run up and run halfway up the tree, and then think, oh my God, this is too steep. Put his claws in and then kind of back down again. So, and it kind of reminded me about the NAIT 50.
Yes.
So it tries to do really big stuff. It has a really have-a-go kind of feisty attitude.
it has got a big heart.
Yes, it's a very big heart, but sadly it's not the largest named power amp in the range.
No.
So,
no.
but the interesting thing is that many amplifiers at its price will just do a kind of vague, kind of boomy bass sound,
Yes.
whereas the NAIT 50 really wants to go.
It'll
really
take on the tree,
really
won't it? It'll
take-
happily take
yeah.
on the tree.
It'll take
And
on the
everyone
tree.
loves a trier.
Absolutely.
And this is
Yeah.
a real
Yeah.
trier of an amplifier.
Absolutely.
And in fact, for me, it's almost like a sort of small dog that's going to grow up to be a big dog, and it's just sort of waiting its time.
Yeah, you can see the potential.
You really can, and it's got that name audio sound, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's got that
Yeah.
and when I say that, I mean the traditional sound of the original NAIT.
Yeah.
It's got that characteristic where it's trying really hard, but it's sort of running out of its own steam.
Yeah, and it's got 25 watts into 8 ohms, so and it's a relatively physically compact thing. So
Yes.
it's kind of going to run out,
Of
and
course.
the only way you can get massive power out of something this size is to put Class D into it, and I don't think that's going to happen in a hurry.
No, I don't
with-
think so
with
either.
Name audio. So
I'm going to put a little caveat in here as well, though, because although the Cambridge speakers are fairly efficient
Yeah.
and reasonably nice to drive, we were quite friendly with the NAIT. You've got quite a big listening room,
Yeah.
and I think actually,
Yeah.
if you had a slightly smaller room, it wouldn't really be too much of an issue.
No.
And I just think it could be absolutely sensational
Yeah.
little amplifier.
yeah, I think in a kind of medium-sized room with reasonably sensitive speakers, you're probably going to get about as much fun as you can
Yes.
from a box,
Yeah.
this size. I'm used to listening to, as we both are, used to listening to a lot more expensive amps than this. But very quickly, I kind of settled in and really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and
I
the
did.
Asia track, actually,
Yeah.
Soul Survivor, I mean, it's a kind of really early 80s kind of pomp rock metal sort of type rock stuff, isn't it? It's really American AOR.
Yes,
you can
yeah.
see, on every American university campus in the 80s they were
Yes,
playing
yeah.
this. But it really got into it and just kind of grabbed it, as it were, by the scruff of the neck and just played it, and I found it incredibly musically involving for
It's
something
brilliant.
of this kind of small stature.
It was really cool.
It's got attitude, hasn't it?
It really does. It's
Yeah.
got a good attitude as well.
Yeah.
But it's feisty.
Yeah.
So then we moved on, and we played an album which actually is again quite a difficult album to play.
Yes.
So we played Supertramp, a Breakfast in America album, which is a bit of a classic. Now this is for me a strange album because it's actually really well recorded.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the right system, it can sound
Yeah.
terrible.
Yep.
Bright, shrill,
Yep.
bass light,
Yep.
screechy, horrible. But with our lovely NAIT 50 here, again, it had another really good fist at it, didn't it?
Yep.
It had a really good go at it.
Yeah.
And we played Take the Long Way Home,
Yep.
which again,
Great track.
great track, fantastic track. And that kind of intro bit, the build up, okay, it can cope with all that, but then the bass comes in and it's really trying hard. I actually felt it did better with Breakfast in America than it did with Simple Minds.
Absolutely, and I think the reason is that this. So it's if you've heard Crime of the Century, which was I think their other great album that they did, wasn't
Yes,
it? In
yeah.
about 1974. Crime of the Century is a superbly recorded album, I think, from the kind of glory days of analog.
Yes.
But it's quite flat. It's not sort of particularly bright. It's quite neutral. But I think they recorded this and then remastered it, as it were, or rather not remastered, but mastered it. So the kind of treble is a little bit forward.
It is.
Maybe so it would just kind of sparkle out on FM radio or something.
That's quite possible.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it's almost been, it's in a strange position of being actually a very good quality recording, but it's like someone's tweaked the tone controls right at the end, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So
it is.
So it can be quite a torture track for hi-fi, can't it?
Yep, and I thought the NAIT did really well with it. I thought
yeah.
it did really well with it. And in particular, I thought it played the bass lines really nicely as well.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't lacking in any way, shape or form. But it was, once again, it was that sort of, that sort of puppy dog approach, wasn't it? I'm going to give this my very best shot.
Yes.
And it's full of enthusiasm.
It was more like it was like more like a little terrier, wasn't it?
Yes.
It's like, let me at it.
Exactly.
So,
and you've got to love its enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So really brilliant for that. So obviously this is a limited edition.
Yeah.
There aren't all that many being made. I can't remember the exact number. Can you remember the number? How many is it?
I think it's 1,973.
Well, of course it will be, won't it? Why didn't I remember that?
So, and why would that be?
Because 50 years ago was 1973.
My God, you're right.
I tell you what, not a lot gets past me.
Well, yeah.
I'm a bit like this,
You are.
Yes.
Yeah.
God loves a trier.
You're kind of Sherlock Holmes in hi-fi terms, aren't you, Mike?
So there's going to be less than 2,000 made. There's going to be a huge demand for them. They're coming in at about £2,500.
Yeah,
I
think I'm not sure. It's about 2,600, something like that. About €3,000 apparently. So it's basically it's not the same amplifier, but there's a lot of similarity, but it's not simply just the original amplifier.
No.
Stuck into a modern case. So there are obviously some modern sort of technical compliance issues and so on, and which it has to meet. And Naim just say that they've preserved the DNA of the NAIT. Whilst making technical improvements to the circuits.
That's a fair comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd agree with that completely.
Yeah.
It's got a very, very similar sound.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's even worth talking about what other amps you could buy from the price. I think that's a rubbish thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the price, is it? It's about what it is,
and
what it stands
absolutely,
for.
and it's so nicely made as well.
It's beautiful.
I'd say it's better made than the original.
Quite possibly.
And the volume control knob, I mean, it's still plastic, but it's kind of beautifully detailed, and it feels really good, really well made thing. It's not kind of silky Japanese style finish, but it feels like a really properly made bit of kit. And the back panel is really high quality as well. It's just a great thing, and weighs about 4.5 kilograms, and wonderful chrome bumper.
I know. Look at that.
What's not to love about that?
Exactly.
It's got a couple of little changes. It's got a headphone socket there. It's a headphone amplifier as well. Apparently 1.5 watt output on that.
That's what I've got out of my NAIT in total.
That's basically the full amplifier section of the NAIT 1.
Original.
And it's got a moving magnet phono input. Again, which I'm sure if it's Naim doing it will be done very well.
Yes,
indeed. And that's really all there is to say. Apart from it's kind of like a big Naim system that's shrunk in the wash. It is. It does so much. It tries to really get into the nitty gritty of the music. It's very involving, but it's not too bright. I wouldn't say it's bright. I'd say it's less bright than the original. Definitely,
it is less bright than the original.
Yeah,
that was probably the downfall, really. If I was going to be picky about it, the original can be quite bright. And also the original, you have to be so careful with your speaker selection.
Yes,
because there's so many things which you just can't drive physically.
Yes,
so, but that's got a bit more grunt,
like speakers, for example.
Like speakers, not headphones. Exactly. So look, I don't know what sort of riffometer are we doing here. If we're doing a retro one or a modern one or whatever. So
I think it's going to be a modern one because it is on sale, but only under as you said, 2,000 pieces. So it's going to be an instant collector's item.
Yes,
I would say.
Yes, if you bought one, I'm sure it would go up in value.
Yeah, I'm sorely tempted just to annoy you.
Well, that would really annoy me. Actually.
All right. Well, I'll
do that then.
I'll phone them tomorrow. Yeah. So and I'll keep the original box as well.
Yes.
But no, it's I really like it. If you let's say if you had a Cyrus Classic amp with the PSXR2, you're talking £3,000. So it's kind of rough ballpark, and that would have more power. And I would imagine, I think, well, we've heard it a number of times, but possibly a slightly more detailed and expansive sound, but nowhere near as much fun, I would say.
Sure.
And it's a kind of, Cyrus sounds more like hi-fi.
Yes.
Than this, which is, I would say, more musical, to use the horrible...
Yeah, the M word.
The horrible cliche. Yeah.
So for me, that's not quite really what it's all about. I just love the fact that Naim have recognised the original, and sort of gone, we really did make an absolutely sublime product back then. So let's tip our hat to that.
Yes.
For our 50th anniversary, let's recreate the NAIT, and for that, I've got to give them a 10.
Yes,
just a great shout, great thing to do.
Well, there you go.
What are you going to give it?
3.
Thanks for that.
No, I'm going to give it a 9.5.
There we are.
So,
Brilliant.
yeah.
So very good, and thanks to Naim Audio for doing that. For those of you who are buying them, you will certainly not regret it. For our lovely Riff gentleman who offered us his, thank you. That's very lovely of you, and you were quite right. It's well worth a listen. So brilliant. Yeah. And on that note, thank you very much indeed for watching this great episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. We'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.